Hi everyone, welcome to our talk on using Watson services and PubNub functions to build cognitive apps. We actually presented this at API World, so really excited to see how this audience likes it as well. Whether you're a pro at serverless or you have no idea what cognitive means, I really think you should get something out of this talk. And you don't need any sort of experience required. It'll be high enough level that you should be able to get something from it. Of course, we hope you leave and decide you want to go get hands-on with some of these technologies because you've been super inspired by this morning. At API World, I polled the audience. I obviously can't poll you guys here, but I'm hoping that we have folks that are using machine learning in production today, or maybe they're building things like chatbots. Maybe you guys are even already using PubNub, and it'd be really cool if you're even using Watson. But if you're an enthusiast in any of those spaces, that's cool too. My name is Amara Keller. I'm a developer advocate with IBM and part of our San Francisco City team. We host local meetups, workshops, and other events for developers, and we also do things like these webinars with PubNub. Feel free to follow me on Twitter or Medium. I'll post that up here now if my slides want to cooperate. There we go. You can follow me on Twitter and Medium. My links are listed there. And I have Bhavna with me from PubNub, and I'll go ahead and let her introduce herself.
Hi, everybody. If you have attended our previous webinars, there's a high chance that you've heard Grace and my voices. So my name is Bhavna. I work as a solution architect at PubNub. Previously a developer evangelist for the same company. So I worked with several different technologies and how to integrate them with PubNub, when to use them, where to use them, how to use them. So today we're going to be talking about how to use Watson's cognitive APIs along with PubNub. So hope you enjoy. And yeah, let's just move on to the demo and the presentation.
Sure. Before, I guess, going into more of the technical bits, I wanted to say a little bit more about my background. So I'm a front-end developer turned developer relations because I wanted to help developers do their jobs better. I've consumed APIs in massive enterprise web applications, and I've been dabbling in analytics and AI for the past few years. So basically all this to say I'm a full stack dev who's mostly mortified of anything to do with like server voodoo magic and maintenance, which is why I was really interested in using PubNub for this demo and kind of getting hands-on with this, serverless real-time framework, if you will, or I guess paradigm. By now, I'm sure you've heard of Watson in some capacity. Maybe you've seen a commercial, read a blog post, or found yourself in some of our documentation. Watson Services is a set of cognitive APIs. They're easy to use and get you up and running quickly. This slide lists a few of the most popular ones, including our Tone Analyzer service, which I will show in a demo at the end. We've got a number of SDKs, including Node.js, Java, and Python to work with these APIs. We even have developer resources that incorporate multiple Watson services into one end-to-end example, what we call a journey. The really great thing about these journeys is they don't just include Watson services, they also include other open source components, so they're a really great way to get your hands on this technology and really do something with it rather than, like a Hello World app. So pretty cool. For example, if you're trying to string some of these together, you could use our conversation service and enhance it with Tone Analyzer or text-to-speech. And again, I would recommend kind of checking out those journeys, and I'll have a link at the end to send you in the correct direction. Watson services are great for people who don't want to roll their own solution. Maybe your organization doesn't have machine learning or deep learning skills at this time, but you're interested to add AI to your solutions. Using Watson services may be your gentle entry point to AI, which I think is really cool as we go on this democratization of AI path. I realize I should have probably given us a baseline to work with. Cognitive might be a term that's new to you, but I've pulled together a few examples to get us on the same page. Watson is many things, and it can be a little confusing if you come at it through the lens of, oh, Watson, the computer that beat those humans at Jeopardy after reading some or all of Wikipedia. It's close, but when I say cognitive, what you should really think is natural language processing, or NLP, plus machine learning, really to help humans be efficient at their jobs. So cognitive is not about replacing people, it's about making their lives and their jobs easier. So you'll see kind of this throughout the documentation and throughout the use cases if you end up on our either IBM site or our code site. I wanted to do kind of a shameless plug too, because when I was pulling together this content ahead of API World, we recently released a Teach Advisor with Watson, and I think this is a really powerful example to explain cognitive and what we're trying to do in that space. But basically it aggregates a bunch of information together with cognitive insights to help teachers who are teaching elementary and middle school math to find resources that they need faster. So instead of having to do all of that research on their own, they're able to see a curated list of content that would be the most relevant for them to teach the subjects that they need to teach these kids. So it's like a really powerful recommender system, but this is kind of the AI for good example, right? So instead of, you know, binging Netflix because Netflix is giving you a list of things to watch, and you know, you emerge from the weekend having watched hundreds, or I guess not hundreds, but lots of hours of content, you can use Watson to help teachers find the right content they need and maybe even help our students learn even better. Now that we have an idea of what cognitive is, let's talk more about Tone Analyzer. So Tone Analyzer takes some written text, like the tweet in this example, and then it scores it based on emotional, social, and language tones, returning some sort of nice JSON. So in this example, you see I have this, you know, very irrelevant football tweet from a couple years ago. I'm passing it into the Tone Analyzer service, and then I get some sort of JSON. In this case, it's kind of graphed out for us, but you can see that there's a pretty good chance that this is a joyful tweet, and because I wrote it, I can tell you it definitely was. But you can see we are getting some other information back here as well. I'm assuming disgust came up because I used a lot of exclamation points, and maybe you could be disgusted and use a lot of exclamation points too. There are two endpoints with our Tone Analyzer service: general purpose and customer engagement. The example here, and I guess the example that I'll show at the end as well, are both using the general purpose endpoint. So it's going to give us these 5 categories of emotion that you see out to the side: anger, disgust, fear, and sadness. Keep this simplistic example in mind. This is what we'll be doing with PubNub at a little bit of a larger scale. I mentioned the customer engagement endpoint. That would be the service, or the portion of the service that you'd want to use if you were building a robust chatbot and you wanted to maybe listen for your users to need things like human intervention, or you wanted to gather some information around the emotional, social, and language tones that are coming across from that chatbot discussion. So our demo at the end with PubNub doesn't include this as an example, but I wanted to point it out as a case. And of course, if you wanted to, you are totally free to build an example like that with PubNub. So you're thinking, okay, cool, I'm a developer, where do I get started? How do I get the Tone Analyzer service up and running? So I've already done this for us, so I'll just spin the example up. But if I was starting from scratch, I would log into Bluemix or create an account with Bluemix and then navigate over to our Watson services. This lists out all of them. I went ahead and just did a simple filter. So over here on this side, I went to Watson and was able to pull up all of them, and our Tone Analyzer service is down here. All I would need to do is click on the Tone Analyzer service. It would spin it up, and I would be able to get my endpoint and my credentials to plug into whatever app I'm making. Similarly with PubNub, it's also available through Bluemix, our IBM cloud platform. So this simply just shows, you know, instead of doing some filtering, I searched for PubNub, and same thing, you're going to click on it, and it's going to bounce you over to the PubNub dashboard and get you up and running pretty quickly. Now I'll go ahead and hand it over to Bhavna to tell us more about PubNub and PubNub Functions.
All right. Let's see. So I'm guessing a couple of you know what PubNub is because you probably signed up for our newsletters and you got information about this webinar. But let's just level set so everyone's on the same page. So what PubNub provides is real-time infrastructure as a service. So think about your favorite chat application or a taxi dispatch app. So you were thinking WhatsApp, we're thinking Telegram or Uber, Lyft, Ola, different collaboration applications like Google Docs or even multiplayer games where you have all these devices anywhere in the world and they all need to communicate with each other. They need to be sending messages from one device to the other, and that has to reach them instantly, irrespective of where they are in the world. And so PubNub is that glue or the plumbing that connects all of them. So think of PubNub as a network which all of these devices connect to. And so when I say devices, it could be mobile, it could be a laptop, it could be game consoles, it could be drones, it could be a web browser, IoT devices. Any device that can connect to the internet can talk PubNub. So when they use the PubNub SDKs, they can now send messages between each other instantly. And so it makes this process of building a real-time application very, very simple. And so you could have tens or hundreds of devices, or you could have millions of devices, and they can all connect to PubNub and send and receive messages between each other instantly. So it just makes the process of building these apps easier so that we will maintain this network for you. You just go ahead and build your application over PubNub. So Amara, if you just move on to the next slide. Yeah, so the way we've built out PubNub is that it's a globally distributed network that's secure, scalable, and reliable. You would choose one of our 70 plus SDKs based on the device of your choice. So say you're building a mobile applications, you could be choosing our mobile SDKs or one of the IoT SDKs for your IoT application. So irrespective of which platform it is, we have an SDK for that. You slap that SDK on your device and now you're connected to PubNub. So you can use any of our APIs to send and receive messages between each other. So usually what happens is that you're building out a real-time application, you're testing it out, you have a couple of hundreds of devices, you're testing it out in a lab environment, everything works fine. But the minute you try to scale that to thousands or 10,000s or millions of devices, there's so many things that you have to be considering, starting from how do I secure all these devices? Now that I have millions of devices, how do I ensure that I still maintain that low latency between them? How do I know where to send these messages? So all of these questions are answered by PubNub. So we maintain this infrastructure so you don't have to. And so we take care of security, we take care of scaling, because we've built ourselves out as a highly distributed network. And so we are available, we're highly available as a network. So 99.999% of the time we are available. And so this removes that burden from your shoulders while building a real-time application. And so the next slide just shows you a bit of our scale, and I guess I didn't touch upon that previously. So we have around 300 million devices connecting to us every month and sending trillions of messages between them. And so that's just an idea. That's just to give you an idea of how scalable PubNub is as a network. So at our core, we provide real-time messaging. So PubSub, publish and subscribe messaging paradigm is what we're built over. So you can have several devices sending messages between each other, and we will deliver that instantly to others. But beyond that, we realize that there are certain other features that make a real-time app more engaging. For instance, if you're building a chat application, you want to see who's online, who's typing, how many people are currently using my application. You want to indicate this with a green dot or a red dot or a gray dot, whatever it is, you want some kind of presence information. And so we provide that using our presence APIs. On the other side, sometimes you want to store data on our network, so pull it out at a later point. And so with storage and playback, you can do exactly that. Because, you know, like I send you a message, maybe you're not online, you come back at a later point, and then you want to pull those messages out. So you can store the messages on PubNub and use our history API to pull them out. And similarly, if you have a mobile application, you want to send out push notifications. And so we have these integrations as well. So the one feature that I'd like to go into is what we call our functions feature. So if you move on to the next slide, Amara. So this is what we built out pretty recently. We call this PubNub Functions, and what that lets you do is to spin up microservices on the PubNub network. So say you want to do some kind of, you know, real-time processing or streaming of the data, route it according to its content, or maybe translate some messages in stream, then you can spin up a function to do that for you. And so PubNub is now providing a place on our network to host this business logic. So instead of you spinning up servers to do this on your own backend, we will do that for you. And so these functions are as highly available as the PubNub network itself. The minute you spin up a function, it is deployed all over the PubNub network. So messages coming from devices anywhere in the world will trigger the function. The function will be executed, and it'll spit out some values based on the logic in the function. So if we dissect this diagram here, the network is PubNub. We're putting in some logic, business logic into it. So say you want to translate some messages that are coming in from English to Spanish. And then we have all these devices connected to PubNub. So when I send out a message, it triggers the function. The function will now translate the message using any kind of third-party service. So for instance, Amara is talking about all of these Watson APIs and Watson services. You can set up a function to hit these Watson services to do anything to do anything that your app wants it to do. So that's what we're going to be talking about. How do you use PubNub and Watson API services to do something to enhance your real-time application? So that's what functions is, and so it lets you spin up all these microservices. You don't have to worry about it. I think both like Watson and PubNub, we have this mantra going on, which is like it should just work. You as a developer, you focus on what's important to you. We'll manage the infrastructure that backs your application. And so with functions and Watson, this is exactly what we're trying to enable. So I think with this, so basically to give you an idea of where this demo is going, PubNub will be that real-time pipe feeding data from your application to a Watson service. The Watson service does something intelligent, spits out those values which you can now deliver using PubNub to your other devices. So that's where the two technologies kind of fit together, and that's exactly what Amara's demo is going to be showing. So Amara, I think there's just one more slide that I want to talk about. Yeah, so these are some of the pre-built functions that we have with PubNub and Watson. Anything from, you know, text to speech, sentiment analysis, language translation. You can use this function that's in our blocks catalog to spin it up and to use it ready-made. But that said, these functions can be customizable. So maybe you want to you know, do language translation as well as sentiment analysis. You can club the two together. You can use it in any way possible, or you can create your own logic as well with the function. So it's pretty easy to get started with. If you go into PubNub.com, you choose functions, you can see this whole catalog of different things you can do with it, and it's very, very simple to spin up as well. So would definitely encourage you to try it out, but you'd get a better idea with the demo that Amara is just going to present.
Great, thanks, Bhavna. So before we dive into the demo, here is kind of the high-level architecture diagrammy thing that we're doing. So it'll be a web application. I'm going to put in 2 brands, and it's going to go off and send that to collect tweets. I believe with the Twitter API, you can grab 3 for each brand without hitting like an API limit there. And you'll see even with 3 tweets each, we're already gaining some insights there. And you can see the back and forth traffic that we're having from functions. So our web application basically calls the function, does something with PubNub where we would want to scale. So in this case, where we're grabbing those tweets, when we ever get to the point where we want to just, open the Twitter floodgates, that's where having this really powerful microservice with this scalable infrastructure really comes into play. Then we're going to have PubNub call our tone analyzer service to score those tweets, return a response, and then display or broadcast in different places. In this case, it's just running locally on my system, so the web application is going to show us a nice little graph of the scored results. So let me escape out of here. I'll bounce back to this page in a second. So I ran this morning to make sure we didn't have any issues with like network and whatever else could possibly happen because it's a live demo. But you see I have two brands up here. I went with Taco Bell and Chipotle because I know we've got a bunch of tech people on the phone and I didn't want to like pick someone's brand that's maybe having a bad day or a bad week and compare it to someone who's maybe having like a really great week. So just went with the basic fast food options here. So you'll see we've got a graph. This is just a simple Node Express application with some jQuery. Our pretty chart is done with high charts. And basically all it's doing is taking that scored JSON that it gets back from the tone analyzer service, and within the PubNub function just says, okay, here's the score that we want shown to the UI. So high charts then gets that score and is able to display it here. So we can see that people are apparently a little bit more excited or a little bit more joyous about Chipotle in this instance, a little bit less joyous about Taco Bell, but apparently Taco Bell is also eliciting some disgust and sadness. which is kind of a bummer. But you can see down here in the console that when we pulled this morning, you can see kind of some of the verbose logging that I have enabled here to see, what's the tone score. It gives me this like huge number. I don't need to be that perfect, which is why, like this kind of looks a little bit rounded off up here, which I think is completely fine in this case. But if you put yourself in the position of someone who is very cognizant of their brand, particularly like a brand manager or maybe like a marketing director, you're going to want to know real time when an event is going on or when you kicked off a campaign or something that's going to trigger a lot of different tweets coming in about your brand. This would be a very powerful thing. And again, when I mentioned, when we open the Twitter floodgates, like if you're running an event, people are going to be tweeting during that event. Is this frustrating to them? Is this exciting? Are they having fun? Is something wrong? And that might be something that you want to monitor. And this is kind of what this somewhat trivial example is showing you that you would be able to do. And the really great thing about this, the really great thing about using PubNub is you can do this in real time without the pain of having to do all of that scaling and that low latency on your own. You just write your PubNub function, and then when everyone starts tweeting, it's going to keep up, and then when everyone kind of stops tweeting for the night or the end of the event or the end of the campaign, it'll come back down again. So you don't have to worry about trying to figure out, how many VMs do I need, or how many servers do I need online, and when do I turn them off so that I'm not, charged some outrageous fee because they're just sitting there idling. All of these things, I, as like a web developer or just a developer in general, I don't necessarily want to worry about, and I don't necessarily need a whole team there worrying about that either. So I think this is really cool. And again, if we opened the floodgates of Twitter, it would just work, which is pretty awesome. While I'm here in my browser, I wanted to show a couple of other things. So within the IBM Bluemix docs, or what we're now calling our IBM Cloud Platform, you're able to get more information about the tone analyzer service, maybe see if it fits your needs and what you're trying to do regarding any sort of like sentiment analysis. It gives you links to demos, additional resources, and then how to use the two endpoints that I was talking about. So the general purpose endpoint and the customer engagement endpoint. Over here is kind of our high-level page, and again, this gives you links to create an account with Bluemix if you haven't already, which I would definitely encourage. You can play around with the Tone Analyzer service or any of the other Watson services that you're interested in. View demos, get more information about how you would explain it to others in your organization. And then this demo here, I just kind of popped open really quick to kind of show you again something else that you can play around with. And this also links off to our docs, our starter kits, and our community. But this is pretty cool. You can take your tweets or maybe someone else's and pass them through and analyze them, and it's pretty cool. Definitely something that I would check out. Let me pop back over here to our presentation and move on over here. So that's all that we have for you today. Thanks for joining us and listening in on how you can use Watson and PubNub together. There's some helpful links on this page. I like to point out the medium.com/unsupervised coding. That's what a lot of our developer advocates at IBM are using. So if you're interested in a variety of different topics, there's a ton of stuff out there. And then I guess don't come by and try to visit our booth because it's not there.
Yeah, so I just wanted to mention a couple of things as well. So PubNub is completely free to start off with. So especially for an example like this, if you want to just give both our technologies a spin, you can sign up for PubNub. It's free to begin with up to a certain limit. And so it's very easy to get started. And so if you guys have any real-time and project that your company or you are working on and you'd like to talk to us about it, then feel free to reach out to us, sign up for PubNub, and we provide free architecture reviews. We can go through how you should be setting up PubNub and for your real-time needs. And so at this point, I guess we can go in and check the questions that we have. I wanted to, some of them that came in were, can we make external requests from a function? You definitely can. You can make XHR requests to third-party services from within a function. There are different ways to trigger the function, but once within, you can reach out to any third-party service. That's exactly what Amara showed today. Message came in through PubNub. It hit a function. The function invoked the tone analyzer service, got some results, and then sent it out again. So you can also set up the function as an endpoint. So, you know, when something happens within your application, you want to invoke this function from within your app, and you can do that as well. And then another question that came in, Amara, for you was that would Tone Analyzer work in Spanish?
So I know we have, with our other services, we have some other language capabilities. I don't know if Spanish works, though. I would say definitely check out our information, our documentation. It should show you, but I don't think that Tone Analyzer works in Spanish at this time.
All right.
So I have a question. Can we get a copy of this slide deck to show the rest of my team? Yes, absolutely. So after every webinar, we take a recording of it, and during the follow-up email, I'll be sending out a link to this recording.
Yeah. And wait, let's see. How can we create a chat box where we have a body of text which Watson analyzes, and then a user can ask a question about the text which Watson then answers, similar to how it worked on Jeopardy? Mara, do you want to take that?
Oh boy. So let me think about that. So you can have like a chatbot conversation where it's more than just, you know, one sentence. You can send it over more text. But if you want the user to ask a question based on the text, I think that's where it might get a little bit more challenging. I'm not super familiar just because I haven't tried doing something like that. But I would say, again, check out our documentation, and you can spin up a Watson conversation service on Bluemix. It's free to get started. It's free to a certain number of queries or comments. But I would say if you're trying to build something like that, the best way is going to be to test it out and see if it works in the way that you want it to. But I don't think we've come across a situation like that. So sorry, my answer is not super helpful.
Yeah, so I mean, for any of these questions, you all know Amara's and my email or any contact information. So feel free to reach out to us for a more detailed discussion. Just moving on to another question, is PubNub built on MQTT? So we just recently launched MQTT support for PubNub. So you can definitely, if you have devices that are talking MQTT, now we support those as well, which means that they can now talk to other PubNub enabled devices or vice versa, or to other MQTT devices themselves. So yes, we do support MQTT. And is PubNub Functions like AWS Lambda Functions? It is and it is not as well. So they kind of solve similar problems, but different ways to invoke it. And PubNub is meant to be very, very real time. So even something starting from spinning up a function takes less than 10 milliseconds. So when you're within the PubNub ecosystem, then it's extremely beneficial to use PubNub Functions. I mean, within PubNub, you use PubNub Functions, and it's meant to solve these, very real-time data processing kind of problems. It's not meant for big data analysis or things like that, where you have to store a lot of data, you have historical data, and then you do this analysis. It's more of chat translation, or at mention tagging within the application, or sending an image based on some text that's sent. All of these small enhancements for your application you can use the PubNub function for. I'm just going through a bunch of questions, Amara, and then I'll pass it along to you if you have some Watson-related questions. Is it possible to use PubNub in smart home technologies? Yes, definitely. So broadly categorizing the use cases that we have for PubNub, that's like you can build these kind of chat and collaboration applications. You can also build home automation and IoT applications, wherein you have all these devices anywhere in the world. You want to control them with your mobile device, or you want to receive information from them, put that on a dashboard, see how they change at every instant. So yes, we do have a lot of companies using us exactly for this, for smart home technologies, like the Snoo baby monitor, wherein you can use your phone to control the baby monitor, or August Locks, Insteon, Logitech. They all use PubNub for exactly this use case. So like I said, it's free to use PubNub. It's free to use functions as well within that trial period. We give you a bunch of devices, like up to 100 devices and 1 million messages between them, and a few function executions. It's all free to use. So definitely go use it, test it out, see if it works for you, see if it solves your use case.
Mara, I think there's a question for you. Can Bluemix's sentiment analysis API be trained by us to understand completely new sentiments?
I believe so. I believe there's a way to extend it. I know there's a way to extend our NLP example, but again, I would direct you to the documentation to make sure that that's doing what you would want it to do.
Mm-hmm. And the other one that came in, what about storing data into a database and playing it back later? Yeah, definitely. So as messages go back and forth between all your devices using PubNub, you can store it on PubNub and then you retrieve it later using the history API, or you can use a function to store it in your own database so that you can do something with it at a later point. You can query it and do whatever you want. So yes, several options there. You can either use our inbuilt database or you can use yours.
Can you use Watson to tag images too?
So Watson does do visual recognition, and there's a number of different capabilities within that service as well.
And then another one following that was, does it support voice recognition technology?
Does Watson that Watson does speech to text and text to speech. So I hope that answers the question.
Yeah. Speech to text. Okay. What? I think we kind of
I think we pretty much covered most of the questions. And like Bhavna mentioned, we are all, you guys have both Amara and Bhavna's emails. Feel free to reach out to us with any questions or any architectural review that you might want with our teams. We're happy to set that up for you. And just to let you know, at the end of this webinar, there is a quick 3-question survey. We would love to get your feedback. If there are any other webinars you would like to see between PubNub and IBM, please let us know. We're always looking to kind of provide the next great webinar content for you guys. So any feedback would be really appreciated. I think unless there's any other last remaining questions, I think that's it for our webinar today. Again, Amara, Bhavna, thank you so much for joining us on our webinar. We hope you guys enjoyed it and learned a lot. Join us on our next webinar next time. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.